Hi, I'm Milind Jalwadi. I'm working as a solution architect in Aarna Networks, and I shall be taking you through a demo of our product, which is called Aarna Multi-Cluster Orchestration Platform, which is AMCOP in short. That shall be used to carve out a logically isolated multi-tenant environment from a common GPU infrastructure, in a as a service model. So essentially, we will be enabling multi-tenancy on a common GPU infrastructure for our clients. This slide shows the demo setup where we have AMCOP installed on a management server, and AMCOP is managing the MGX or the HGX systems. Here in this case we have MGX servers. These are connected via the management network switch. AMCOP is managing the bare metals, the CPU, the GPU aspects of it. It is also configuring the networks, both Ethernet and the InfiniBand. For Ethernet, we are integrating with an OS switch on the Bluefield 3 chip, and for the InfiniBand, we are integrating with the NVIDIA Unified Fabric Manager. And to do all of this, we have two personas. One is the NCP admin itself, so it will do the day zero configurations of this whole infrastructure, and it will also create tenant admins. Here we'll be creating two tenant admins, and those two tenant admins would be responsible to create the bare metal or the VM instances for their consumption. Before the actual demo, let's actually see how the demo sequence will run. So as a prerequisite, AMCOP shall be installed, and we would also assume that all the OS and the other drivers on all the bare metals and the required switches are all installed. And then as a step number 2, NCP admin shall kick in. So the NCP admin shall import all of the pre-provisioned bare metal and the switches, and then NCP admin is going to create two tenants. So once the tenants are created, the respective tenants will log in. Now the tenant 1 shall log in, and we'll show how the tenant 1 would create a bare metal instance, like he would be offered a bare metal instance based on a business intent, and tenant 1 is going to create another VM based instance based on a fixed intent. Now we'll also see how these two bare metal and a VM, which are belonging to the same tenant, have been given a separate Ethernet and an InfiniBand network. Later on, our demo will proceed for tenant 2, where tenant 2 shall log in, and for tenant 2 shall create two VM based instances again on a fixed instance. So fixed intent meaning he shall give, the tenant shall give the OS configurations and the other details. And then again we can see that for this tenant the AMCOP has created another InfiniBand and the Ethernet networks, and these two VMs are placed on that network. So essentially we'll see the whole CPU, GPU network and InfiniBand isolated for tenant 1 and tenant 2. So let's jump in to the demo straight away and log in as an NCP admin as a first step. So as an NCP admin, we first need to import the data center resources. So we will be importing the MGX server, which has GH200 CPU and the GPU, and we shall also be importing a Spectrum switch. So as you will see in a while, once you import, you have the associations between that. We capture that in the GUI. You can click onto the server or the switch and you can get the whole product specifications of that. And using a very similar methodology, you can add more servers or the switches, and you can actually model how the data center resources are deployed and connected. Now this is an NCP admin overall view where you can see the number of servers which are onboarded. This screen shows you the ops persons, which will be used by the ops persons to monitor the statistics of the GPU utilization, the memory, the power drawn and things like that. So now at this stage we have onboarded the server, the switch, and we are able to monitor it. The next step would be to show you the software catalog that is existing. So AMCOP comes with all the software catalogs like OS images, CUDA toolkits and other prerequisite software, which could be selected from a catalog and then deployed onto the bare metal or any instance as we want. Now let's go to the step of addition of the tenants. We are creating the tenant NVIDIA 1. Subsequently, we will create the second tenant, which is NVIDIA 2, and both of these tenant would receive their login credentials through emails and other mechanisms which are standard. and once they receive those credentials, then they will log in. So now we have completed the NCP admin tasks, which is provisioning or importing the servers and creating the tenants. So now let's log in as a tenant 1, and as we had discussed before, through this tenant we are going to specify a business intent of the workload that the tenant has. So now let's specify that intent, and as a part of this intent, you specify whether it's a training or for inferencing, what kind of model is being used, probably how much hours of the you want the results to be out. So accordingly, what AMCOP does is it will try to find out the best fit for of the hardware which can be proposed to the tenant. So here we have filled in all such details, and in this screen you see the proposed hardware. We also give the billing information that the user wants to select, and he can run the tenant can run the performance benchmark just to validate, so that before he locks on to the hardware, probably the tenant just wants to validate whether it's good to go. So here you can see that because it's running, the GPU workloads are running, you can see the GPU utilization will go up very short in a short time. Yeah, you can see it's gone to 82% and all other things have gone up. So once the performance tests are there and it gets executed, then we also have an option to download that performance results, and so user can validate that, and once he's fine with that, he can go and allocate the compute. So in this screen you can see both the options, downloading the report and allocating. So we'll just go to allocate. So user is fine and he's going to getting the bare metal allocated for him. So once the bare metal is allocated, the further provisioning steps happen. So it would be assigning of the IP address, it would be creating the virtual networks, and once you click this you get all the details. So it's an overview page of that bare metal that has got allocated, which is again for operations person. He can see all the usage statistics, the GPU usage statistics. Let's come to the interesting part, which is network, which you will see the two interfaces, external and internal IP, and P key and the VNI, like the IB network isolations and the VXLAN isolation you just saw. So those have been allocated for that particular bare metal, for that particular tenant. Furthermore, this tenant is now going to have a VM based, so what you are seeing currently is a VM based allocation, which is a fixed intent. So it gives which Ubuntu version, how many vCPUs, GPU we are not selecting here for this VM, and then again he selects the pricing and then he says allocate. So once again, what you can notice here, because it's a second instance, it's a VM instance, but for the same tenant, you will notice that the virtual network that was created before for the bare metal, the same gets allocated. Of course, you will have its own external and internal IPs here. You can see the monitoring part as we saw before. This is the view for the VM, the test one VM. And you go into the network. Now you can see the P key and the VNI, that is the VXLAN and the InfiniBand P key. Those two are the same, that those were created for the bare metal. So this bare metal and this VM are thus, they can communicate with each other. That's what we have ensured. Now let's move on to the tenant 2. We'll be doing very much similar activities for tenant 2. So as you might recall, we are going to create 2 VM instances for this tenant 2, and we'll be going with a very similar approach, the fixed template, selecting of the NVIDIA OS version that has to be deployed there, the number of vCPUs needed, the pricing details, things like that. Let's go and allocate it. Now when this allocation is happening, so this is the first VM of the next tenant that is getting provisioned. So it will create a new InfiniBand network and a VXLAN network, but we'll come to that later. Right now we are seeing a second VM instance getting created for that tenant, and we have naming it as a test 3. So let's create in a very similar methodology. We have not selected GPUs here because we only had one GPU which was allocated to the bare metal, but otherwise we could also have allocated that if we had access to those. So now let's go. So both the two VMs are created, the IPs are assigned. Now let's go to the details of it, and again verify what we just talked about a little while ago on the network isolation part. These are the statistics that you see. Yeah, network isolation, you can see that the VNI and the P key are different from that of the tenant 1, and these P key and VNI for this test 2 VM will be the test 3 VM will have the same details. Now we are going to the test 3 VM. Now let's go to the network, let's validate that. So as you can see, the P key and the VNI are the same for the test 2 VM that you just saw some time ago. So in short, this is what the demo is all about, where you could see that an NCP admin imports the infrastructure, he creates the tenants. The tenants has the flexibility to create their own VMs or a bare metal, and AMCOP takes care of the network isolation and ensuring that all the workloads for the specific tenant are in the same network virtualization or the same overlay network. So we essentially ensure that the workloads which are belonging to different tenants, they don't talk to each other. So really thank you very much for watching this demo, and stay tuned, we will come up with more updates, the next being the storage isolation for tenants and few more feature additions. So we'll be very happy to have you again to watch the next series of demo videos. Thank you very much.